This is the White Coat Investor Podcast, Milestones to Millionaire, celebrating stories of success along the journey to financial freedom. Hey, and welcome back to the Milestones to Millionaire podcast with the White Coat Investor. I'm your host, Dr. Disha Spath, and we're here on number 67. Family Doc pays off $184,000 of debt. This episode is sponsored by Pattern. Shopping for disability insurance is complicated. Wondering if you're getting the right coverage, unbiased advice, along with the best prices and discounts can make the process even more overwhelming. Pattern knows doctors have more important things to do than spend hours sorting through numerous insurance options. This is why the White Coat Investors followers have trusted Pattern to help them compare and understand the disability insurance they're buying. Their online process is simple. First, request your quotes online. Second, compare your options and ask questions. And third, secure your policy. Be confident that you have the right policy at the best price. Request your disability insurance quotes with Pattern at patternlife.com/WCI podcast. All right, today we have a wonderful guest on, Dr. Sareena Brown. She's a family practice physician who's paid off her student loans of $184,000. Welcome, Dr. Brown.
Hi, how are you doing today?
I'm doing well, thank you. How are you?
I'm doing well. I'm excited to be on this podcast. I listen to it all the time, so excited to share my success with you all.
Awesome. We're so excited to have you here, and we're really excited to get to the details. So tell us a little bit about yourself. You're a family practice physician. How far are you out of school?
I completed my residency in June 2017, so about 5 years out from that.
Awesome. And what part of the country do you live in?
I'm in the Washington, D.C. area in a Maryland suburb, so.
Oh, awesome. It's a pretty high cost of living.
Very high cost of living. Very high cost of living. Pandemic does not help.
Yeah. So you paid off $184,000. How long did it take you?
I made my final payment the day before Thanksgiving, 2021. So it's been a bit of time since I submitted my application to be on the podcast.
All right. Okay. Well, that's awesome. Congratulations. So you really just took about 4 years to get it done.
Yep.
Okay, tell us about your household situation. Are you married, and what was your average household income during that time period?
Yep. So I'm single, no children.
Right.
For my 3 years of residency, I made about $55,000 annually. And then my first job out of residency, I made $175,000 in private practice, which I did for about 2 years. And now in my current role,
Okay.
As a subacute rehab physician, I make about $185,000.
Okay, awesome. So, how did you do it? Tell us the details.
Yeah. So first off, I mean, simply, I generally keep my cost of living very low as I possibly can, which is helped by the fact that I'm single and I have no children. When I was in residency, I did enroll in the income-driven repayment PAYE program. So during those 3 years, I simply just paid whatever the minimum due based on the percentage of my income. Then as soon as I started making that full salary when I got into private practice after finishing residency, I would kind of just keep tabs on my bank accounts. And anytime I saw that there was a large amount of excess money available, I would just make a large lump sum of payment. Initially,
Wow.
I did consider doing the PSLF program, so I didn't consolidate the federal loans. I did also have these private institutional loans, which were provided by my medical school, which had to be repaid no matter what. So I said, let me just target those first, since I know they're going to have to be repaid. That was about $40,000. After I finished paying that off, I proceeded to kind of pay off the largest federal unsubsidized loans first, which had the highest interest rates. And as I slowly kind of saw the loans being eliminated one by one, I realized, hey, I could probably just pay this off. I don't need to do this PSLF. And I did refinance a couple of times to get lower rates. especially in the pandemic. That was helpful. I got low rates, but I mean, ultimately, it didn't make that much of a difference because the best way to pay the less interest was to just pay it off rapidly, which is what I ended up doing.
Wow. So that requires so much discipline to see extra money in your accounts and put it towards your debt instead of spending it, instead of taking a nice vacation or something. So what was that thought process like where you decided, I just want to get rid of this debt? Why was that?
Yeah, I mean, I really don't like the concept of debt in general, and paying additional money to borrow money. But obviously, medical school is very expensive. There was no way that I was going to pay for that. My family was going to be able to pay for that, so debt was necessary. And I just knew that I wanted to pay as little interest to the government or the student loan providers as I could, and when you do your taxes and you get those forms in the mail, you see how much interest you pay, and it hurts. So that was enough motivation for me to say, no, 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 no. Like, I want to see this number to be as small as possible.
Yeah, it really feels like double taxation, doesn't it? Because you're like paying taxes on your income and then you're paying the student interest. At least you get to write a marginal amount of that off, but not very
Yeah.
much.
So for a few years, I
Yeah,
was able to write a little bit off.
yeah, yeah. So was it easier or harder than you thought to pay it off so quickly?
Yeah, I mean, I never thought it would be that hard to do, given that I knew, I was going to have a large salary increase after residency. Um, but as I've kind of said before, I think it was easier for me being a single person without children, not having to consider others in this equation, just myself and my own sacrifices. So, yeah, that definitely made it easier.
Okay, okay. So how does it feel now that you don't have any student loans?
Well, it feels great to not be dragged down by debt.
Yeah.
But in parallel to eliminating that loan debt, I did decide to become a homeowner. Uh, so
Okay,
that brought on a new kind of debt, especially we talked about this
sure.
area. Cost of living is quite high. But I mean, ultimately, I see the progression of my goals, and I'm glad to not have any more educational debt, and I don't plan on having any more in the future. So
Nice. Yeah. The difference between student loan debt and a house debt is that house debt, you actually get something, right, going forward, which is something that's actually going to appreciate and value as well. So,
definitely seems to be
whereas
tangible than
student
my
loans,
degree.
what's that?
Yeah, it definitely seems a lot more tangible than my degree, right? The diploma hanging on the
Right,
wall doesn't
absolutely.
have the same feeling.
Yeah, and the value of your student loans is that you have your doctorate and you have your earnings that you get from that doctorate, but it's dependent on you working, right? Whereas
Exactly.
now you own your degree, everything that you earn goes directly towards your household building wealth, right? And you can
Yeah.
work as much or as little as you want, and you can still maintain a delta. And your cash flow is going to be so much more positive at the end of the month. So, congratulations.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. So, what advice would you give to someone that's just like you before you started?
I think the key was to educate myself. And so I think you got to educate yourself. You got to be willing to study personal finance like you studied medicine with that same dedication. Look for evidence based information, just like we're taught to practice evidence based medicine nowadays. I found the White Coat Investor book right at the end of my medical school, and I'm very grateful for that because it made me start thinking about it. And I remember in the book it says like you should read two personal finance books a year at minimum to kind of continue to grow in your knowledge. And I really took that to heart and just kept reading and learning
Wow.
about how to be financially independent. So I hope this podcast and whoever listens to it will motivate someone younger, or a future doctor to kind of seek out more knowledge.
Awesome. So, just what are the two books that you would recommend to someone that's coming up?
Mm, I really liked, I mean, it's a brief read, and it doesn't get into great depths about like finance like specifics, but I liked what is it called? The latte factor. Sorry, took me a minute.
Ah, yeah, I've heard of
Latte
that.
factor. And then, of course, The Millionaire Next Door was a good book. It kind of helped me set up a good organized system for keeping records and track of things.
Awesome. Awesome. Thank you for those recommendations. So, what are your next financial goals?
Well, my next goal is really to find alternative streams of income, ideally through house hacking. That was the motivation for me buying a home. And then, hopefully grow my net worth more rapidly and ideally achieve FIRE, which is, the new buzz word or acronym. So I would like that for myself. I like my job, but I want to choose when I work and how I work.
All right. Yeah. So the FIRE stands for Financial Independence Retire Early. It's a movement that's been, taking the world by storm, at least this country by storm, for the last few years now. What's your FIRE number? What's the number that you want to retire?
That's a good question. Yet to be determined. Let me get married, have some kids, and then I'll figure that number out.
And then decide that. That's a good point. All right. So, Dr. Brown, we are so happy to have you here. Thank you so much for sharing your story and inspiring our listeners to follow in your footsteps or take away a little tidbit. I'm definitely, I haven't read the Latte Factor yet. I'm going to have to. It's been on my radar. So, thanks for recommending that.
Definitely a quick
Well,
read.
thank you.
So yeah.
Awesome.
All right. Yeah.
Awesome.
Thank you, Dr. Scott. I really enjoyed talking with you, and I'm glad to be able to share my story and my success.
So, what a wonderful conversation with Dr. Brown. I'm so glad she took the time to share her story with us. I really loved her idea of reading 2 financial books a year and just keeping that up throughout your career so that you can continue to build your knowledge. That's awesome. And I hope we can all, keep up with that goal. Um, the sharing that she did about the way she paid off her debt, which is basically looking at an extra amount in her bank account and putting a lump sum towards her loans. It takes a lot of discipline, and a lot of motivation. And just kudos to her for getting this done so quickly. And hopefully, you learned something from that conversation as well. Today's podcast was sponsored by Pattern. Shopping for disability insurance can be complicated. Wondering if you're getting the right coverage, unbiased advice, along with the best prices and discounts can make the process even more overwhelming. Pattern knows doctors have more important things to do than spend hours sorting through numerous insurance options. This is why thousands of white coat investors, followers have a trusted Pattern to help them compare and understand disability insurance they're buying. Their online process is very simple. First, request your quotes online. Second, compare options and ask questions. And third, secure your policy. Be confident you have the right policy at the best price. Request your disability insurance quotes with Pattern at patternlife.com/WCI podcast. Keep your head up, shoulders back. You've got this, and we can help at the White Coat Investor. We'll see you next time. The hosts of the White Coat Investor podcast are not licensed accountants, attorneys, or financial advisors. This podcast is free entertainment and information only. It should not be considered professional or personalized financial advice. You should consult the appropriate professional for specific advice relating to your situation.